The night shift had long become routine for Ethan Ward. Every evening, he arrived at Fairway Corporation with his worn-out mop and bucket, quietly cleaning the marble floors while the city outside pulsed with life he no longer felt part of. Once his hands had danced over ivory keys in front of cheering crowds. Now they scrubbed away footprints and coffee stains left by people who didn't even glance at him. But tonight something was different. A new grand piano had been delivered to the lobby earlier that day. A sleek black beauty gleaming under the chandelier light. Ethan paused mid-mop, his gaze drawn to it like a magnet. For a moment, time folded in on itself. He saw his younger self again. On stage, his wife smiling from the front row, her eyes full of pride. He hadn't touched a piano since she passed. The grief had been too heavy, too raw. "Come on, Ethan, just one note," he muttered to himself. His fingers twitched, yearning to feel the cool touch of the keys. The sound of laughter broke his trance. A group of young interns stumbled in, still in suits but loosened and loud from after-work drinks. They stopped when they saw the janitor standing by the piano, mop in hand. "Hey, old man," one of them snickered. "You know how to play that thing or just clean around it?" The others chuckled. Ethan gave a polite smile, ready to step away, but something in their laughter, something careless and cruel, made him pause. "I used to play a little," he said softly. That only made them laugh harder. "Oh, really? Then play something for us, maestro," one joked, bowing dramatically. Ethan hesitated. It had been years since he'd let himself touch a piano, but something inside him stirred. A quiet defiance, maybe, or the ghost of who he used to be. Slowly, he sat down on the bench. The laughter faded into a curious silence. His reflection shimmered in the polished surface of the piano, lit as he lifted his hands, hovering over the keys. For a few seconds, he didn't move. His fingers trembled, stiff from years of work that had nothing to do with music. Then he pressed a single key. A low, resonant note filled the air. It was pure, unhurried, as if the piano had been waiting just for him. The room seemed to shift, the echo curling softly against the marble walls. He pressed another and another, and soon a melody began to form, fragile, haunting and achingly beautiful. The interns froze, their smirks fading. Ethan's eyes closed as he surrendered to the rhythm, letting his pain spill out through every note. He played not for them, not for applause, but for the woman he had loved and lost, for the boy sleeping at home waiting for his dad to come back from another long shift. And in that moment, the janitor wasn't invisible anymore. He was an artist rediscovering the language of his soul, one trembling note at a time. The music flowed like water from a long sealed spring, spilling into every corner of the marble lobby. What began as hesitant, almost fragile, soon grew into something deep and breathtaking. Ethan's fingers moved with instinctive grace, finding harmonies that wrapped around the silence like a tender embrace. The interns stood frozen, their earlier laughter dying in their throats. The youngest among them slowly lowered his phone, realizing this wasn't some silly moment to mock. It was witnessing something real, raw and almost sacred. The melody carried weight, sorrow, and years of buried emotion. It spoke of sleepless nights, of loss, of holding his son close when the world felt too cruel. The sound was not flawless, but it was alive. A security guard stopped near the entrance, frowning at first, then softening as the tune reached his ears. The receptionist, packing up for the night, put down her purse and turned. Within minutes, more people gathered near the edges of the lobby. Drawn in by the music, Ethan didn't notice. His eyes were shut, his body swaying slightly, as if he were dancing with the memory of someone unseen. Every chord was a heartbeat, every pause a sigh. He played the piece his wife used to hum while cooking, the same one she made him promise never to forget. When she died, he couldn't bear to hear it again. Now it came rushing back, unstoppable, like she was there beside him, whispering, "Play, Ethan, play for me." Tears shimmered in the eyes of those watching. The soft glow of the chandelier flickered across Ethan's weathered face, revealing a serenity no one had ever seen in him before. The song reached its crescendo, fierce, aching, triumphant, and then slowly descended into quiet. The last notes lingered in the air like a prayer before fading into silence. For a long moment, no one moved. You could hear nothing but the faint hum of the buildings, air vents, and the pounding of hearts. Then the room erupted, not with laughter, but with applause. It wasn't loud or showy. It was reverent, heartfelt. The young intern who'd mocked him earlier wiped at his eyes, trying to hide his emotion. "Sir, that was incredible," he muttered. Ethan looked up, startled, as if waking from a dream. He smiled faintly. Just something I used to play, he said, standing slowly and smoothing his worn uniform. He turned to leave, but one of the staff members hurried forward. Wait, do you teach? You have real talent. Ethan only shook his head. No, I just clean floors. And with that, he picked up his mop again, moving toward the far end of the hall. But the people stayed rooted in place, unsure of how to return to their routines after what they'd just heard. A single recording light blinked quietly on one phone. No one knew yet that this humble janitor's quiet act born from grief and memory would travel far, beyond these polished walls before dawn, touching the hearts of millions who would soon know his name. By the next morning, the entire building buzzed with whispers. Ethan arrived, as he always did. Just before dawn, uniform neatly pressed, thermos of coffee in hand, ready to start another quiet day. But this time something felt off. People were staring. The receptionist, who had never done more than nod politely before, smiled wide and said, "Good morning, Mr. Ward." A few employees in the elevator whispered to each other, stealing glances at him. He brushed it off, assuming it was nothing. Then, as he stepped into the lobby, his supervisor appeared, slightly out of breath. "Ethan, the CEO wants to see you now." Ethan froze mid-step. "Mr. Hale?" he asked, frowning. "Did something happen?" "I didn't, just go," his supervisor said, eyes wide with something between awe and confusion. Ethan wiped his hands nervously on his pants and followed. The executive floor felt like another world, glass, chrome, and the faint smell of expensive coffee. He rarely came up here. The receptionist outside the CEO's office gestured him in immediately, her tone unusually respectful. "He's been waiting for you." Ethan hesitated, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. Richard Hale, the CEO of Fairway Corporation, stood by the window, tablet in hand. The massive grand piano gleamed in the corner of the room, the same one Ethan had played the night before. Without looking up, the CEO pressed play on his tablet. Music filled the office, the same melody Ethan had poured out into the quiet lobby. He felt his chest tighten. Someone had filmed him. His first instinct was panic. "Sir, I didn't mean to use company property," he began quickly. "I was just—" "Ethan," the CEO interrupted, his voice calm but thick with emotion. "That was you, wasn't it?" Ethan nodded slowly, waiting for a reprimand. Instead, Richard turned toward him, his expression unreadable but his eyes glassy. "That song," he said quietly. "It's called Claire's Promise, isn't it?" Ethan's heart stopped. "Yes," he whispered. "How do you—" Richard's voice cracked as he spoke. "It was my late wife's favorite piece. She used to play it every night before bed. When she died 5 years ago, I couldn't bear to hear it again. And now, out of nowhere, I hear it coming from downstairs from a janitor." He gave a shaky laugh, brushing at his eyes. "You brought her back for a few minutes, Ethan. That music, it meant everything to me." Ethan stood frozen, unsure what to say. "I'm sorry for your loss, sir," he said softly. "I didn't know. I just played what my wife used to love too." For a moment, the two men looked at each other, strangers connected by grief and melody. Then the CEO straightened, taking a deep breath. "I'm hosting a charity gala this weekend," he said. "We'll be unveiling the piano in her memory. I want you to play that night." Ethan blinked, stunned. "Sir, I'm not a performer anymore. I haven't been for years." "You're wrong," Richard replied gently. "You are exactly what music should be, real." The night of the gala shimmered with elegance and expectation. The ballroom sparkled under 1,000 golden lights, the air thick with perfume, laughter, and the hum of polite conversation. Waiters glided between tables, crystal glasses chimed, and a massive banner hung across the stage. A night of hope, in memory of Claire Hale. Ethan stood behind the curtain, his heart hammering in his chest. He wore a simple black suit the CEO had insisted he borrow, well-fitted, unfamiliar and far removed from his janitor's uniform. His calloused fingers fidgeted nervously at his sides. He could see the grand piano gleaming beneath the spotlight, and it felt almost intimidating, like a ghost from his past waiting to test him again. He peeked through the curtain. The guests were all there, executives, investors, even city officials. At the center table sat Richard Hale, the CEO, his expression proud yet somber. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the back of the room and softened. His son Noah stood there in a slightly oversized shirt, grinning from ear to ear. He gave Ethan 2 thumbs up. That tiny gesture steadied him. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped out as the host announced his name. A quiet ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. A janitor? But curiosity soon silenced judgment. Ethan sat at the piano, every muscle tense. For a heartbeat, he thought about walking away. Then he remembered his wife's voice. The way she used to say, "Don't hide your heart." "Ethan, let people hear it." He placed his fingers on the keys and began to play. The first notes were soft, fragile, almost shy. But then the melody bloomed, full of emotion, rising and falling like waves against the shore. The hall grew still. Forks paused mid-air, conversations died out, and the only sound that remained was Ethan's music. His fingers moved faster now, no longer trembling but alive, confident, channeling years of pain, love, and resilience. Each chord seemed to tell a story. The struggle of raising Noah alone, the nights of exhaustion and silence, and the flickering hope that music once gave him. By the time he reached the final notes, tears shimmered in more than a few eyes. Richard Hale stood, clapping first, his applause echoing through the hall. Soon the entire room joined in, rising to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to shake the chandeliers. Ethan sat there stunned, chest heaving, eyes glassy with disbelief. Richard walked onto the stage, shook his hand, and whispered so only he could hear, "You didn't just honor my wife. Tonight you reminded everyone here what real music sounds like." Cameras flashed, applause thundered, and for the first time in years, Ethan smiled without holding anything back. In that moment, under the glow of the stage lights, the janitor became the man he was always meant to be again, the musician with a heart that could move the world. In the weeks that followed the gala, Ethan's life shifted in ways he never imagined. The video of his performance spread across social media. Like wildfire, millions of views, endless comments, news outlets calling him the janitor pianist who made the world cry. But fame wasn't what he sought. Each morning he still showed up early to Fairway Corporation, mop in hand, preferring the quiet before the world woke. Yet things weren't the same. People greeted him now, executives, interns, security guards, all with warmth and respect. Some even asked for piano lessons for their kids. He'd smile shyly and say, "Maybe someday." Still, the attention felt surreal. For so long he'd been invisible. Now people looked at him and truly saw him. One afternoon, as he was cleaning the lobby where everything had begun, Richard Hale approached with that same calm, kind smile. "You've changed this place, Ethan," he said, resting a hand on his shoulder. "And you've reminded me why this company matters, because of people like you." Ethan chuckled softly. "I just did what I love, sir." Richard shook his head. "You did more than that. You gave people hope." Then he handed Ethan a folder. Inside were official documents and a letter. "We're starting a foundation in Claire's name," Richard explained. "A scholarship for hidden talents, janitors, waiters, single parents, anyone who gave up their dreams to survive. I want you to lead it." Ethan's throat tightened as he read. His name printed at the top. Director of the Claire Hale Music Foundation. He could barely speak. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Richard smiled. "Say yes." Ethan nodded slowly, emotion brimming in his eyes. That evening, when he picked up Noah from school, his son bounded into his arms. "Dad, my teacher showed our class your video. Everyone said you're amazing." Ethan laughed, pulling him close. "Guess your old man's not too bad after." "Oh." They stopped by the empty lobby before heading home. The piano gleamed under the soft light, waiting. Noah climbed onto the bench beside him. "Teach me, Dad?" Ethan smiled, placing his son's small hands over the keys. "Always," he whispered. Together they played a simple melody, clumsy at first but full of life. The notes floated up, gentle and pure, echoing against the marble walls where his story had begun. As the last note faded, Ethan looked around the quiet space and felt peace settle over him. He wasn't just the janitor anymore, nor the man who had lost everything. He was a father, a musician, a dream reborn, and as his son laughed beside him, hitting a wrong key with a grin, Ethan realized something beautiful. Sometimes life takes everything from you just so it can give it back in a different, more meaningful way.